If it's possible, we may have reached the bottom of the veritable political barrel on the Republican side of this presidential chase. Late last year, the Washington Post used a cartoon editorial to mock the children of Ted Cruz. Now we have a Ted Cruz Political Action Committee without Cruz's approval, using a picture of Melania Trump to make a point about Donald Trump's electability. The candidate fired back with a threat about Mrs. Cruz. And we're now deeper in than anybody would have imagined at this point. Then again, is not this election year all about breaking what we thought were the political rules? Welcome back to respected presidential historian and New York Times bestselling author of Last Act of the Final Years and Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan, Craig Shirley. Craig, good to talk to you again. Let's go ahead and get to this, because the picture of Melania Trump comes out. It was from a GQ spread, I believe, and it was semi-nude, and it was not in good taste whatsoever. It was put out by somebody who was an acolyte, if you will, of Ted Cruz. Donald Trump comes right out, throws out the immediate tweet, because we all know that Donald doesn't like to react immediately. Lion Ted Cruz, picture of Melania, GQ shoot, be careful, I will spill the beans on your wife. Ted Cruz comes back, fires right at him. Hey, look, the picture of your wife was not from us, Donald, and if you try to attack Heidi, you're more of a coward than I thought. Hashtag classless. Hey, Craig, wait a minute here. Weren't wives at one point really off limits when it came to political
Sure, but they were off limits, but that's probably passed into history for good. Actually, Mary Todd Lincoln was heavily criticized by Congress for her lavish spending in the White House. Eleanor Roosevelt was a huge issue, especially in the 1940 campaign when FDR was running for a third term, and there were buttons produced that said no third term, and we don't want Eleanor either. Betty Ford became a campaign, figure of mirth. So did Rosalind Carter for sitting in on cabinet meetings. So as we progressed, we've probably gone downhill. I was going to say we're in a race to the bottom, but, who knows where we're going to be. This is only, March. Where are we going to be by November?
If anybody has not seen the next season of the current season of House of Cards, I am about to hit you with a spoiler, and believe me, it is relevant in this one. Because, Craig, in the Netflix series House of Cards, there is a storyline going now about the First Lady perhaps being also the Vice President. Is it not fair to say that in this day and age, the First Lady maybe needs a little more vetting, because they are right there? Look, Nancy Reagan was right there to help Ronald Reagan. Is it not fair to say that they are right there next to the seat of power, and they may have an influence on what happens in America?
Well, Nancy Reagan always, she joked in her autobiography that, she slept next to the president every night and had for 50 years. So, of course, she was going to, use her position to talk to him about things. But she never got involved with policy. She did get involved with politics. She did get involved with personnel. But, of course, Hillary Clinton ran in 92 with Bill Clinton. They ran as the blue light special, as the blue plate special, get 2 for 1 free type thing, is that you were going to get a co-presidency. And then, of course, she tried her disastrous restructuring of America's health care under Hillary care. So there probably, is a good point to be made for a better vetting of first ladies, since they've in the 21st century now, in the 20th century.
Because are we not talking about very powerful women who certainly,
yes.
Look, 100 years ago, people would say women don't know anything about politics. Stop right there.
Right.
Some women know more about politics right now than men do, and they can actually have an influence.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And I think the point is well taken, is maybe there needs to be a better vetting of potential first ladies in anticipation of their being elected to the White House.
All right, let's talk about something else here, and it comes down to children. The Washington Post cartoon I referenced, it had Ted Cruz very upset, and I think rightfully so, because it showed him supposedly using his kids as political props, but it showed his kids as monkeys with an organ grinder. Come on. Now, we can talk about first ladies here, but our children are completely off limits and should never be part of a campaign. Yes?
Well, yes, they should be, especially when they're a minority, like they're little children, like in the case of Ted Cruz's. If they're adults, that's another matter. They tend to be, especially since so many have embarrassed their parents in the past, but when they're adults. But that's another matter. When they're children, we still should abide by the old rules about children of politicians being off limits.
Come on, everybody. Stop making this an American shame right here. Wives, kids, let's leave it off limits. Let's stop with all of this. Let's get down to issues itself, and that's what we are hoping for, the person who will run this country. Whew. We got a lot going here. It's going to continue. Don't forget, latest book once again, Last Act of the Final Years, An Emerging Legacy of Ronald Reagan. Craig Shirley, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, Ed. Thank you.
All right, take care of yourselves. Stay tuned because we're right back here on the fastest 60 minutes of news. The Hard Line continues.